Hey, hello, and welcome to this episode of Learn Everyday English, your roadway to English proficiency. Glad you're watching me today. If you like these videos, 1, hit the like button, 2, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you'll know when I upload another video, and 4, tell your friends about it. Also want to let you know we have Learn Everyday English podcasts that are very popular with listeners all around the world. Actually, we have people in over 60 countries that are listening to the podcasts. So go to Spotify. That's the main app that people are using to download and subscribe and to listen to the podcasts. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, all your main podcast applications. So be sure to check those out. They come out every Monday, so weekly you have something to listen to practice your listening comprehension. Also, we have a Learn Everyday English website at www.learneverydayenglish.com. There you can access the podcasts, and also we have a podcast resources page where I have program notes that go along with the podcasts. So just go to that podcast resources page, find the episode, and download the program notes so you can follow along with the podcast. Hey, I think that's it. We here in Texas, we just went through some very terrible weather. We had a very bad winter storm for about 1 week with a lot of freezing temperatures. But we're okay now. It's a beautiful day today. It's about 70 degrees Fahrenheit outside and sunny. But today I'm going to be talking about something hopefully you'll find interesting. Maybe a bit challenging or frustrating, but something I think that you need to do, and it'll be beneficial for you or helpful for you. So today we're going to be talking about tongue twisters in English. Tongue twisters. Have you heard of what a tongue twister is? You know, this is your tongue. To twist means like to bend or to turn, or just in a kind of a, if I twist this piece of paper, this is like to twist. So it kind of causes your tongue to get all twisted up and maybe hard to speak, hard to pronounce things. But they are phrases of words that are intentionally or on purpose that are challenging to say. And I know they have these in other languages. I'm studying Spanish, so I know they call them trabalenguas, which I guess means to make the tongue work. But in English, we call them tongue twisters. So I'm going to go over some of these, and here I'm going to put these in the description below in the video so you can follow along. But I also have a link if you go to the WEBPAGE, podcast resources, since I'm going to be talking about this on a podcast. Go to the tongue twister episode and download this sheet. So then you can read along, follow along with me, but I'll also put the actual tongue twister words and phrases down in the description below this video. So to start off, I'm going to go over what is probably the most popular tongue twister in English. This has been around for a long time, and I remember when I was a kid in school, this tongue twister was around and people would say it. So I'm going to say the tongue twister all the way through. Just listen, maybe read along if in the description below, or if you want to download the sheet, and then I'm going to go over it line by line. But here is the tongue twister called Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where is the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? And always a challenging thing to do, or maybe even fun thing to do do here in English, and I'm sure in your countries for tongue twisters, we try to say them a little bit faster, or as fast as you can, and your tongue starts to trip up, or it gets hard to say the tongue twister. So I'm going to try to say this a little bit faster. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where is the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? You want to try that? Well, let's give it a shot. So the first line says, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. So first thing, Peter Piper is just the name of the person in the tongue twister story. It's a man, because Peter is a male name. So we don't know his last name, maybe Piper, so his name is Peter Piper. And he picked. To pick is like if you take something, pull it, like pick a flower from the garden. He picked a peck. So this might be a word you don't know. A peck is a unit of measurement, and it's equivalent to 8 quarts. 8 quarts, so it's like a volume, amount of material. So he picked a peck, 8 quarts of pickled peppers. So a pepper is a type of food product, something you eat. And you can pickle peppers by putting them in like vinegar so that they can last a long time. So this is very common to have pickled foods, like sauerkraut is a pickled food. It's pickled cabbage. Pickles are pickled cucumbers. So Peter Piper picked a peck, a large 8 quarts of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. It's just kind of repeating what he did. So if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? So that's the most common tongue twister in English. So I'm going to say that one more time and try to say it along with me. Rewind the video. Use this as pronunciation practice. Because I'm doing this video because a lot of people have told me that one of the most difficult things about learning English is the pronunciation. So where your tongue is in the mouth, how your lips are formed in the mouth has a lot to do with pronunciation. And these are, think of them as not just games or something maybe fun or frustrating, but it's just good practice for your pronunciation skills. So here we go. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where is the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? So this is really practicing your use of the P word, p, or p, Peter Piper. The next tongue twister is going to be focusing on and practicing using the b word or letters or sound, the B sound in English. And this tongue twister has to do with or involves a lady, and her name is Betty Botter. Betty Botter. So Botter is her last name. Her first name is Betty. So I'm going to read this tongue twister through the whole thing, read the whole thing, and just listen for now. And this is a fairly common tongue twister as well. So Betty Botter bought some butter, but she said the butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter. But a bit of better butter will make my batter better. So 'twas better Betty Botter bought a bit of better butter. So did you understand what that was saying? Or were you so confused about the buzz all the way through? So one thing I'm going to talk about, vocabulary, is the word batter was mentioned in the poem, in the tongue twister. And batter is just like a mixture of flour with liquid and other ingredients like milk, sugar, salt, and eggs. So you make a batter in the kitchen so that you can make things like pancakes, bread, cakes, cookies, muffins. So batter is just a mixture of flour and other ingredients to make something in the kitchen. There's also the word bitter. Bitter is like something that tastes bad. It's not a pleasant taste. It makes you go, it's kind of bitter. It's not sweet. So again, I'm going to read the tongue twister and go through line by line. Betty Botter, the lady, bought some butter. So you all know hopefully what butter is. But she said the butter's bitter, like it has a kind of bad taste. If I put it in my batter, which is the thing to make like cookies and cakes and other things, it will make my batter bitter. But a bit of better butter, right, the butter that may not be so bitter, it's better, will make my batter better. So 'twas better. So 'twas is just a contraction or another way to say it was. So it was better, Betty Botter bought a bit of better butter. So kind of read that and study that tongue twister. And maybe if you need to go back, look up some of the words so that you can maybe try and understand the meaning, what it's saying. But I'm going to say it again and just listen or try to follow along with me. So here we go. Betty Botter bought some butter, but she said the butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter. But a bit of better butter will make my batter better. So 'twas better Betty Botter bought a bit of better butter. And to have some fun, let me try to say that a little bit faster. And just to let you know, even English speakers, native English speakers, have trouble sometimes saying these tongue twisters, especially if we try to say them a little bit faster. So let me see if I can do this. Betty Botter bought some butter, but she said the butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter. But a bit of better butter will make my batter better. So 'twas better Betty Botter bought a bit of better butter. Ha! I did it. Whew! So try to practice that, those first two tongue twisters. It'll greatly help your English pronunciation. It'll kind of loosen up your mouth and your lips and your tongue. And it's just helpful. And I've been trying to do this with Spanish. And there's always the problem in Spanish of rolling the R's, that drrr sound, which is something we don't do in English. So that's very difficult. So I've been practicing some Spanish tongue twisters or trabalenguas. Here's another very common tongue twister, and it's about an animal, which is kind of like a rodent, like a big, you might want to say a big rat, but it's called a woodchuck. That's the name of the animal, a woodchuck, a woodchuck. And then another word in the tongue twister is the word chuck, chuck. So to chuck here just means to throw something. Like I'm going to chuck a piece of wood at my friend. I'm going to throw a piece of wood over there. So we got woodchuck, which is the animal, and to chuck, which means to throw. So in the tongue twister, the woodchuck is going to chuck. So the woodchuck, the animal, is going to throw certain things. So here we go. I'm going to read this one through one time. And it says, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? He would chuck, he would, as much as he could, and chuck as much wood as a woodchuck would if a woodchuck could chuck wood. So here we're focusing on the ch sound and the d sound, woodchuck, ch. So let me read that again. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? He would chuck, he would, as much as he could, and chuck as much wood as a woodchuck would if a woodchuck could chuck wood. So let's go through that line by line. How much wood, then wood is like some material that comes from a tree. So how much wood would a woodchuck chuck? Like would a woodchuck, the animal, chuck or throw? So how much wood would the animal throw? If a woodchuck could chuck wood, or he was able to throw wood or to chuck wood, he would chuck, he would, like he would throw, he would really, yes he would, as much as he could, as much as he was able to, and chuck as much wood or throw as much wood as a woodchuck would, W-O-U-L-D, if a woodchuck could chuck wood. So this is a good exercise because, as you can see, there are two words that sound exactly the same. Wood, like from a tree, W-O-O-D, and the word W-O-U-L-D, like I would go if I had a car, or I would go to your party this afternoon, but I need to study for my test. So would, it sounds the same. So it's a good practice to differentiate or distinguish between two words that are spelled differently but sound the same. So again, here, let's go through this. Maybe try to say this along with me. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? He would chuck, he would, as he could, and chuck as much wood as a woodchuck would if a woodchuck could chuck wood. Haha, that's kind of a funny little tongue twister, but it's very popular, especially in kids that are going to school. Let's move on to the fourth tongue twister, and it's about a girl or woman that lives by the sea. So in the tongue twister, it has some words that are, hopefully you may know, but one word is seashell. Seashell. A shell is just an object that you find at the sea that might have contained some type of crab. So a seashell is a shell that you find by the sea. And the other word is seashore. The shore of the sea is like the edge of the sea. So the seashore. So you might find seashells by the seashore. So this tongue twister kind of focuses on the S and the SH sound. S, sh, seashore, seashore. So when you do these tongue twisters, it might help to exaggerate your mouth movements. So instead of just saying seashells, say seashells, seashells. Exaggerate, overemphasize everything. Move your mouth and lips and tongue. Hey, don't mind if you look foolish or you look stupid. Hey, it's just part of the learning process. Okay? So here we go. We're going to go over this tongue twister. She sells seashells on the seashore. The shells she sells are seashells, I'm sure. And if she sells seashells on the seashore, then I'm sure she sells seashore shells. So you see there I messed up. So let me do that again. She sells seashells on the seashore. The shells she sells are seashells, I'm sure. And if she sells seashells on the seashore, then I'm sure she sells seashore shells. So as you can see, there's a lady that's selling seashells, and where? On the seashore, by the sea, or by the shore of the sea. The shells that she sells are seashells, or a specific type of shell, and I'm sure, I'm positive. And if she sells seashells on the seashore, which we already know, then I'm sure she sells seashore shells. Whew, that one's a little bit tough, even for me, I gotta admit. So let me say that one more time and try to follow along with me. She sells seashells on the seashore. The shells she sells are seashells, I'm sure. And if she sells seashells on the seashore, then I'm sure she sells seashore shells. That one, it helps really to overemphasize the seashells, 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 seashells. So that might be a good thing to practice. Just go seashells, seashells, or she sells, she sells, she sells, seashells, she sells seashells, she sells seashells. And then the last one I want to go over is this one. And this is going to practice the kind of W, which, wrist, r sound. And this one's shorter. It's like kind of just one sentence. And it goes like this, we say in English. Which wristwatches are Swiss wristwatches? So a wristwatch is just a watch that you wear on your wrist. So this is my wrist. So this is called a watch, or sometimes we say a wristwatch. Swiss is referring to the country of Switzerland. So we say a watch that is made in Switzerland is a Swiss wristwatch or a Swiss watch. So here's a tongue twister. Which wristwatches are Swiss wristwatches? And sometimes what we do in English, we'll say these tongue twisters over like 3 times in a row or 3 times consecutively. So let me try that. It's which wristwatches are Swiss wristwatches? Which wristwatches are Swiss wristwatches? Which wristwatches are Swiss wristwatches? Whew! That's a tongue and mouth and lip workout, isn't it? So where it says to question, which wristwatches are from Switzerland, right? So let's do that again and repeat after me. We're going to say this 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and let's go. And I'll say it a little bit slower. Which wristwatches are Swiss wristwatches? Which wristwatches are Swiss wristwatches? Which wristwatches are Swiss wristwatches? Hey, how did you do? Could you do that? I know it's not easy. So a lot of these take some practice. So just watch the video, rewind it, and repeat it. But again, like I said, this is very, very good practice for loosening up your mouth and tongue and lips and for pronunciation practice. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Learn Everyday English and these kind of common, fun, and like I said, maybe you thought it was difficult, so it might be frustrating tongue twisters. But again, if you practice things like this, it will really, we say in English, it will really pay off. That means it will really help you. It will really benefit you. In essence, you're going to receive something. The payoff won't be money, but it will be improvement in your language skills. So hey, if you like this video, again, hit the like button and subscribe. Hey, let me know what you thought of the video. Leave me a comment in the section below. Hey, tell your friends about it too. Hey, and be sure to check out our podcasts, Learn Everyday English podcast. Go to Spotify and just type in Learn Everyday English. And I'm sure you'll like those. And check out our Learn Everyday English website at www.learneverydayenglish.com. Well, I think that's it for today. We'll be bringing you more videos. And like I said in the past, I'll try to do that on a more regular schedule. And until next time, hey, we'll see you later on Learn Everyday English. Hey, goodbye.